To our joint event between the Norwegian Solar Energy Cluster and the ONS Foundation here at Oslo Innovation Week 2021. Finally, we are together here in Oslo, and also a warm welcome to those of you joining us online. As a representative for the younger generation, I of course have quite an interest in a sustainable future for me to build a life in. And I have to say that I'm happy to see that the energy discourse has evolved over the years, and that the sustainable energy and the energy transition is at the top of the agenda when we meet in Stavanger next year at ONS 2022. But we can't wait that long, so today we are asking the question, can Norwegian tech make a difference in the global solar energy race? For a sustainable future to be within our reach, we also need to explore points of action and what is left for sustainable energy sources like solar to really become a majority player in the global energy mix. Solar is definitely scalable, but who will the money come from, and what is required for investors to commit? What drivers do we see in the solar space? In our first part, we will hear from founder and CEO of Rystad Energi, Jarand Rystad, Managing Director Europe, Equinor Ventures, Kjersti Reinsnos, and Global Head of Future and Tech Industries Corporate Banking in DNB Bank ASA, Trine Loe, sharing their valuable insights. Moving on, we will hear from 6 entrepreneurial spirits from the Norwegian renewables tech space when they pitch their solar solutions in just 3 minutes. Lastly, we open up for a Q&A to expand our conversation. Our first speaker was named one of the most cited petroleum analysts in the industry by Financial Times and has extensive experience in oil and gas strategy advisory work from McKinsey and Rystad Energy. Rystad is here represented by Jarand. Take it away, you can start our show.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for this invitation. I realize I need to update my CV. Because over the last few years I've been working much more with renewables and energy transition than actual oil and gas. But we are now facing an energy transition. We will go through a complete change of the energy systems over the next 3 decades. And to understand that transition, we need to have a very holistic view on the energy system. So that's why I'm starting with a quite complex slide, capturing the entire energy system in one slide. So if you can help me to progress to that one. Yes, thank you. So on the left-hand side, you see the primary sources of energy, the fossil fuel sources and also the renewable sources, which is green, of course, on the top, with solar on the top, and solar will really be the most important part of this. This energy is not very useful at the current primary energy form, so we have to transform it either to molecules you can use, which is the second column, or to power electrons that you can use, which is the third column. And then this energy needs to be transformed or transmitted or transported to the end users on the right-hand side, which is buildings, transportation, and the industries. And also we have to understand exactly what is energy used for. And this is the gray columns. Is it used for heat, for work, for electric services, or for materials? So this is actually capturing the entire energy system and also 100% of the global emissions. And it will be a lot of substitution within the system. And this, you can regard this as an equation set. And you can solve this equation set with respect to different optimization object functions. For example, with the lowest possible investments, what is the energy mix, or with the lowest possible emissions, or with a combination of the lowest possible emissions and investments. So we are working with this equation set, and we have solved it in many different ways, and I will show you some of these ways. And solar is a very core component in all of these solutions. So I'll start with a solution that is consistent with a 1.6 degree solution for global warming, according to the latest AR6 report from IPCC. And here is this solution. It's from a very long time span, from 1965 until 2100, 135 years. So what you can see is today, from the bottom, coal, oil and gas is the dominant energy sources. But in 2050, if we progress, One more, then you see that 77%, according to the solution, will be green energy, renewable energy. From the bottom there is modern biomass, is geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar. So we see that solar is the clear dominant part. And solar at this stage, and for the second half of this century, will be as large as oil is today and has been. So this is, on the left-hand side, the primary energy sources. If you progress more, then you see that this is the energy carrier. How is this energy carried to the end users on the right-hand side? Today it's 23% electricity. The rest is heat transfer or molecules, as you see, either in gas, solid, or liquids form. In 2050, it will be, if you progress one more, you will see that it will be 69% of electricity. So it really, we will see a world that will be electrifying completely. 32% of this need to come from the storage, as you see, because it's intermittency of solar and wind that will be the key part of this. Also, we will need some molecules in addition to the oil and gas molecules, which will be hydrogen. And this hydrogen will be produced either from methane in the start or from green hydrogen when you have stranded electrons from solar and wind. And we see a five-folding of the global energy production. Looking then at the final energy consumption, you see that both buildings, transportation, and industries will have increasing access to energy, even if the global consumption or the primary consumption is going down from 600 exajoule down to 450. So how could that be the case? With a declining primary energy consumption globally, but still increased access to energy. Well, this is because in fossil fuel, you lose 2/3 of the energy in the molecule when you're using it, at least for work purposes. But with solar and wind, you are losing much less, only maybe 5% to 10% in the grid, and between 15 and 20% in the battery. So we are losing like 20 to 25%, which is much less than in fossil fuel. So this explains the apparently paradox of having a declining primary energy consumption going forward. So this is a possible solution. This solution will give this profile of carbon emissions, meaning here we will have net zero carbon emission in 2057 with 660 gigaton of emissions to that point in time. So why did we choose this solution? Why didn't we go for a 1.5 degree solution or 1.4 degree? I'll try to give you a few examples. So here you see from our energy scenario of Cube, comparing a lot of different solutions for the future energy mix. And you see here carbon emissions that is consistent with the IPCC report for respectively 1.4, 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, all the way up to 2.2. And you see also the years of net zero. From 2035, the solution I showed you now was 2057. So we could ask, why don't we go for a 1.4 degree scenario? That is better for biodiversity and for energy systems and for biosystems globally. Well, let's look at the associated investments, and let's look at the associated solar production capacities that is needed to compensate for this extremely fast decline of fossil fuel. So here you see the 1.4 degree scenario on the top. Then we need to produce 47,000 terawatt hours from solar alone in 2040, which is, by the way, current global electricity production is 27,000. So we need almost to double that only from solar. In terms of, but if you go further down, you see that for example, for the 1.6 degree scenario that they presented, it's about 28,000 terawatt hours, which is the same as the global energy, global power production today. So if you then look at the installation needed to get there, you see that to get at the first, to get to this 1.4 degree scenario, we need to install up to 3,000 gigawatt per year. But we only need to do that for like 5 years. But still we need to build all that solar PV manufacturing capacity, only to be used for a few years. You see that also for the 1.5 degree scenario. But if you look at the 1.6 degree here, you see that then you will be able to have a peak deployment of solar at 1,300 per year. Today we have about 150. So it's about 8-folding what we have today. And by the way, if you look at the plans of the big solar manufacturers, they have already planned to double the capacity. So we already have concrete plans to see 350 gigawatt being installed in 2025. So as you see, the 1.4 or 1.5 seems unrealistically fast, and also with a very illogical situation where we are building a lot of plants that will only last for a very few years, and that will take up extreme capacities globally. So 1.6 seems to be a much more likely and possible solution. But solar will really then, according to this, be the new the cheapest source of energy that will fuel and be the main way to get rid of fossil fuel globally. You see, for wind we have a similar logic. This is wind only. Again here, 1.4 and 1.5 seems unrealistic. 1.6 and 1.7 seems more realistic. Looking at we are analyzing every single solar project and wind project globally, and with a full cost of that, and not only looking at what is stated, but actually what is the real cost and what is actually happening with the projects also. But here we are just showing the PPAs that has been agreed. It's on a logarithmic scale, so it's much steeper decline. But what we see is that, of course, the average solar project is now down to $30 to $40 per megawatt hour, which is an extreme cost decline from more than 200 just a decade ago. Just in 2021 and 2022, we see a slight increase due to capacity squeeze in the value in the supply chain. So we see actually increasing solar costs currently, but we expect this to, when this capacity squeeze is over in 2023 and 2024, we see a lot of technology improvement that will take this cost down further. So we really have good prospects for seeing that solar is not only the cheapest source of energy in the kind of special places like Chile and very warm places in Spain, etc., but even on a quite broad geographic range globally, solar will be the cheapest, and actually so cheap that it's not only competing with full cost of fossil fuel, but to some degree also with the marginal additional cost of just running a fossil fuel plant, like coal or in some places gas. So some places it will make sense to stop continuing operations of thermal plants and rather replace them with new solar farms due to the very low operational cost and increasingly low cost of installation. Of course, the issue is the intermittency. But the other good development that we see these days is this fast decline of battery prices, getting down to less than $100 per kilowatt hour, and then it will be a very good option to integrate the batteries in the grid. So with this, we see a fast decline of emissions from the power sectors, for example, in Europe. So here is our forecast now for emissions from the power sector, and we think it's realistic to achieve the goal that EU have to have 55% reduction of emissions by 2030. With the current initiatives to deploy in many of these countries both solar and wind farms. So I think we can be quite optimistic on that. I think overall we can be quite optimistic to reach somewhere between the 1.6 and 1.8 degree scenario globally. Of course, I only taken a very small part of that overall narrative today, but looking at all the other sectors also, this seems to be achievable. However, 1.4 or 1.5 degree seems to be a stretch that is not likely to achieve according to the current definitions by IPCC. However, IPCC in their budgets has already accounted for quite big non-CO2 forcing after net zero from the agricultural sector, with still large methane emissions from fertilizers, from cattle, and from rice cultivation. And if you're able to do something with that, you can, the 1.6 degree scenario I just presented can actually be changed to a 1.5 or even a 1.4 degree scenario. But then we need some revolutions in the agricultural sector. So let that be my last statement. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jarand, and I'm so happy to hear that you're so passionate about solar, and you're right, you're doing a lot more than just the traditional oil and gas nowadays. So thank you so much for your reflections, makes me a bit optimistic. So for Jarand's analysis to hit home, venture capital is vital. Our next speaker represents the corporate venture arm of Equinor and has extensive international background from investment banking in Goldman Sachs and with the Norwegian Foreign Affairs. Welcome, Managing Director and Head of Equinor Ventures Europe, Kjersti Reinsnos.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting us here today. Exciting topic, scaling up solar. Can Norwegian tech make a difference? One important factor to succeed is to have the right investors on board. And I'm here today as an investor sharing what we are looking for when investing in startups within solar and what we do to empower startups to succeed and develop. So, but first, who are we and what do we do? Next slide. Is that there? Thank you. So, and it's starting with Equinor. We are a broad energy company operating solar, wind, and oil and gas worldwide in more than 30 countries. Equinor has an ambition to become net zero by 2050 and to be a leader in the energy transition. And to deliver upon that ambition, we in Equinor Ventures has a key role. We invest in and support innovative companies to shape the future of energy. We have been around for many years, more than 20 years, and we have already a portfolio within oil, gas, and renewable and solar. But now we have a larger mandate. We have a new mandate, larger in terms of monetary terms, and also what we can invest in. And if we start with monetary terms, we have a mandate to deploy $750 million over the next 5 years. We have a global approach, and we invest in the entire venture value chain from project funding through convertibles to equity. And we also engage in early phase funds and accelerators. And I can mention that our accelerator program is now open for applications. What we do look for when we invest, and a part of our mandate, is that the startup should have a strategic important or bring strategic value to Equinor. And then you see down there on this slide, you see what we mean with bringing a strategic value to Equinor. It can either improve or enhance our operations today, or it can expand or test future growth legs, or it can explore, like we get strategic insight. Here I'm also talking about game changers that can significantly disrupt the energy sector going forward. What this means for solar, I will show on the next slide. Here. So today, Equinor has a handful of solar projects. So we are looking for startups that can enhance or improve current business. They can bring, for example, technical solutions that can improve energy efficiency or reduce costs for our operations. We are also looking for startups that are creating opportunities for growth, expanding where we are today. That can be emerging technologies and business models that can become big and make a difference for Equinor and for the market going forward. One example here is one of our portfolio companies, Oxford PV. It's a UK-based company and the developer of perovskite technology. We are also looking into floating solar and that segment for creating future growth. So what are we looking for in a company? So I've been speaking about strategic value. We're looking for companies that can bring strategic value to Equinor and make a difference in the market. But regardless of sector, there are some characteristics what we see in what can make a company or a startup successful over time. And the first one is a competitive advantage. When we do get an opportunity, we do assess many potential opportunities every year. Sorry. So we do get many opportunities every year, and then we are looking into does this company have a competitive advantage compared to others? Are they solving a problem? We are also looking into, can this business model being scaled, and is the market large enough for the business to scale? And of course, we're looking at the team. Is it a competent team? Are they complementing each other? And are they having ambitions? Do they have a drive? All these things are important for being successful over time. And the last one, exit potential, attractive returns. As a venture investor, we need to deliver financial returns over time. And that's also something we assess before we decide whether we invest in a company as well. The likelihood for the company to bring also financial value to Equinor. So the last slide, maybe the most important one. Now we are pitching to you, startups. So what do we bring to the table? So we only invest in companies where we believe we can make a difference. We come, of course, with capital, but we also come with competence and a commitment over time. We have a team of very, very knowledgeable venture capitalists in our team, and we also have board members in the companies we invest in, and where they work together with a company to scale and grow. We also come with potential implementation opportunities, and we are consistently working with a company to develop and scale throughout our ownership. So I would like to make one final comment. So I believe that we in Equinor Ventures, working with you startups, can make a difference in a low carbon future. Thank you.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much. And I know there's a lot of people watching both here and also online that really benefits from this insights from you guys in Equinor. So thank you. Another company with a leading position within renewables in the Nordics, as well as an international scope in several continents within hydro, wind, and solar, is DNB. Our last speaker has experience from various management positions within large corporate banking, both in Norway and internationally. She is the head of Future and Tech Industries division in DNB, Trine Loe. She will give you her take on how DNB finances renewables and solar power systems.
Thank you very much. On the first picture here, you see a long journey all the way from Moses Lake Silicon Factory to what we see today in opportunities when it comes to small-scale solar plants combined with agriculture. It surely is times of vast opportunities that we are in the midst of right now. But as covered very well by Rystad, enormous investments are needed for us to be able to reach the target of less than 2 degrees global warming. And we know from IEA's estimates that it's probably needed $5,000 billion in annual investments to actually reach the target. So capital is definitely going to be the key to this solution. And we know also that solar will probably be the largest source of energy when we get to that point. Most of you will know that we are a leading bank in Norway and also in the Nordics when it comes to renewables, but not that many know that we've actually done project finance on a global basis for very many years. We have a niche position in South America, particularly also in North America and growing, Europe of course, and in APAC we mainly focus on Australia. So we have many years of experience from financing renewables internationally, together with international banks. Today, the portfolio is still mainly hydro, or the largest part is hydro. Solar is about 18%, but of course growing, and most all the new projects we have today would be within wind and solar. We have been doing a lot of deals from we did Sunwafer and REC in the very old days to starting up project finance together with the NextEra, one of the largest players in the US, doing our first solar in 2011. And we work closely with companies like Mainstream, Aker Horizon, BlackRock, etc. in this field. And I will run you quickly through some of the experiences that we have from financing this sector in solar over the last years. So first of all, when it comes to plant performance, panels, in the early days we spent a lot of time looking at proven vendors when it comes to solar panels, but it actually turned out not to be a big problem. The panels have been working. But inverters, on the other hand, have been problematic. And I think in more plants where we have seen problems, inverters have, in more cases than not, been actually the issue. And it's been all kinds of problems, actually. It's been too hot, too cold, rodent problems going into the inverters and causing fires. And it's very strange because it's such an old technology, and it is proven, but still it turns out that this is a huge problem in the industry. Operation and maintenance has really professionalized as the scaling has come up. So we see also that scale has been important, but also, of course, helped in the efficiency of the maintenance. So that's a very proven part of the performance. But weather has been an issue. Most of you will think that, of course, wind will blow more or less through the day. But what we have seen is that in the project we've financed over these 10 years, we have rarely seen a plant perform above the 50% probability scenario. And that is quite interesting. And it's usually, it's been snow, it's been more clouds, it's been insufficient cleaning, but actually the production has been less than what has been expected. If we look at the technology, and Rista commented on this, the fall in the cost, of course, this is the basis for the whole commercial position of solar. And I'm not going to go into the details there, but because we will see this cost go down again, and it is the key to this, to the solar energy being the core to the future solution. But of course, when you finance it, that can also cause an issue. So PPAs are really important in this side. Solar thermal, the old energy, is still a part of the mix, and it will still be there. So I think we shouldn't count it out, even though we don't see as many projects on this. But when it comes to batteries, of course, there is a lot of activity. We have, by now, done our first 3 financings of batteries as balancing capacity in the US. So that is a quite interesting sector to follow closely. And of course, we will see the cost drop in batteries as well. And I'm really excited to see how the batteries can help balance the necessary transition that we need with the intermittency issues that Jarand commented on. And then we've also seen lower growth demand, not only through the COVID, but we have seen that many countries have taken down or stopped or postponed large industrial investments that have also affected the demand growth, which again has had an effect on energy prices. And lastly, grid bottlenecks, which happen, and of course are a nuisance. They haven't been the largest problem, but it's still an issue that needs to be addressed. So these are some thoughts from the last 10 years of financing solar plants that I think there are vast opportunities in terms of solving the issues around solar. And then if we move forward and talk about startups and growth companies, DNB is very committed to help and support startups and growth companies to enable the energy transition. And of course, it's not only about capital, it's also about knowledge, advice, industry expertise, networking and events. But when it comes to financing, I'd like to comment that financing needs to be tailored to the actual business model of the company. And of course, in early phases, it's mostly about venture, equity, etc., some small scale support. But when you get to the growth phase, that's really where the pain issue comes in, and where you need to look at, what is the balance between debt and equity, what kind of risk are you willing to take in the growth phase, and also to look at what are you actually financing. Is it a customer contract, or is it actually an asset that can have an asset-based financing model? So I think it needs to be fine-tuned to each and every one, and that's why the advice part is really important. So I think having the industry knowledge and the experience that we have will help us be in a better position to assess the companies that are going to make the solutions for the futures. We would like to see a lot more startups and of course scaling up growth companies within the green sector. We are a member of the Energy Lab and Startup Lab, where I am a part of the advisory board, so that's a commitment that we also have. And this week we also have the Norway's largest startup event, DNB Next, which is again trying to use the base that we have to have startups meet investors and large corporates to enable the contacts that we need to find the opportunities for the startups. So with that, vast amounts of capital, we're committed to sourcing and facilitating 1,500 billion Norwegian kroner by 2030 to sustainable activities. And that's something that we take very seriously, so we hope to work with many of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Trine, and thanks for identifying some key issues that needs improvement, but also your commitment to wanting companies to actually scale up. So thanks to all of our three speakers giving us their reflections. We are now entering the pitching session of this event, where we will hear from 6 entrepreneurial spirits from the renewable tech space. So Glint, Repack, Swalin Solar, Circular Waters, Over Easy and Vaterra each have 3 minutes to show off their solutions. I'll change place and then you guys can start up. So first, Harald Olderheim is the CEO of Glint Solar. He has experience as a clean energy venture investor, as a management consultant, a successful entrepreneur, and from a large number of companies within the clean energy sector. So take it away, Harald.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm Harald in the Glint Solar, and we are accelerating the solar revolution. The next 10 years, more than 1.8 trillion will be invested in solar energy. And as Jaron said, by 2035, solar energy will be the largest source of power to electricity in the world, globally. So large amount of money is going into this sector. And how to build a solar plant is getting more and more standardized. And both the hardware and how you are doing it. So the big challenge now for developers is to find the best sites where they can get best margins for the projects that they are building. And some people say it's kind of gold rush now to find the best sites. And that's what we are doing in Glint Solar. We are helping those to find the best sites using satellite data, machine learning, and other databases to find those project sites. And why is this difficult? Well, it's when you're looking at the site, there's a lot of different factors you have to evaluate, like the land type, the wind, the slope, the shading, flooding risk. So today, typical way of doing is very inefficient. It's manual when you are looking for sites. You're maybe sitting in your office getting projects into or you have a person traveling around to find a good site. So maybe you're looking at 10, 12 sites to find a good site. So instead of doing this, you can look at maybe several thousand of sites by using our technology. And it can help customers to grow faster, increase profitability, get better margins, and also save a lot of time. So our goal is to be the largest provider of solar energy site data in the world. And we're doing this selling one region at a time or one country at a time as a software as a service model. And we started globally, so we've been selling this to customers all over the world, mainly in Europe and US, but also have some in Asia and Africa and South America. And it's going well. And with our team, we are 7 people now, a combination of energy people and data science people. We believe we have a very strong team. So if you think this is interesting, you want to either join us as an employee or an investor or a customer, you're very welcome to come and talk to me.
Thank you so much. And we'll move on with our next pitcher. Jørgen is the co-founder and CEO of Repack. He has a master's degree in electrical energy engineering and previously worked in BCG, specializing in large-scale renewable energy, before founding Repack at the end of 2020. The team has had tremendous progress in less than 12 months in existence. So Jørgen, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much. So hi everyone, my name is Jørgen. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Repack, and we are here to enable the reused battery revolution. So I think it's no question asked if the demand for battery storage will increase over the next years. And Bloomberg New Energy Finance have estimated the installed base to grow by more than 170 times. So I think there's no question about that. What is most very interesting now is to see how market participants and analysts are now really seeing kind of the uptake in demand, with almost close to triple-digit growth in certain markets and regions. And very interesting from a Norwegian point of view is to see how also the solar platform Otovo is saying that the battery revolution and growth is coming much sooner and becoming much larger than originally thought. And at the same time, the adoption of electric vehicles is rendering a lot of discarded battery volumes. So the world is screaming for batteries on one side, and on the other side, we're throwing away tons of discarded electric vehicle batteries. And McKinsey have estimated those volumes to grow by more than 200 times over the next 10 years. That is the 200 gigawatt hour number is 3 million Teslas being discarded every year. And that is only personal cars. So if we then add on commercial vehicles like buses, vans, etc., or marine applications, the numbers are huge. And the really sad part about this is that 1 out of 3 of these batteries are fully functional with more than 80% remaining capacity, and can then live on for more than 10 years in a second life application. So that is where we in Repack come in, by converting these discarded batteries into high quality scalable battery systems for quickly growing markets like real estate, construction, grid, and many more. We are currently working on multiple product categories based on the sourcing agreements we already have for residential and commercial and industrial systems, and we're also looking at several industrial experimental markets. We are now in just less than 11 months. We already delivered 6 working prototypes to paying customers. We already have more investors joining the team. We are raising funds by the end of the year in order to reach our ambition of becoming European leaders by 2025 in reused batteries and world leaders by 2030. So if there's any investors watching this, any potential customers or hires, then please come talk to us. And I wanted to finish with this slide. I think many of you have seen kind of the continued how we managed to underestimate the growth in solar, which is the main topic of today. And we're asking the question, is battery the next revolution that we are underestimating? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jørgen. For our next pitcher, Åge Eivind Aslaksen is the inventor of Swalin Solar's patented technology and founder and CEO of Swalin Solar. He has a background in architecture from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology and RWTH Aachen in Germany. Welcome.
Thank you. Climate change is a great threat to biodiversity. To keep the temperature increase below 1.5 degrees, a 15-fold increase in solar energy is needed in the next 30 years. And a further cost reduction will also make this more likely. Unfortunately, the mining that is needed to make this happen also poses a threat against the nature. In addition to me, our core team consists of Svein Kvernstuen and Jan Helge Strømnes. Svein is the founder of one of Norway's leading battery technology companies, Beyonder, and Jan Helge Strømnes is an expert in the development and design of energy and storage systems. In many densely populated areas or close to hydropower plants, installation of water can be the only available option. The floating solar market has experiencing a growth rate of about 22% each year, and it's expected to reach about $2,300 million by 2026. Our system requires only 10% of the materials that is needed for the solar cell materials that is needed compared to conventional systems. This reduces both the need for mining, CO2 emissions, and also costs. We have an extensive use of recycled plastic materials in the rest of the modules, and it's estimated that our system has CO2 emissions that is 70% lower in the manufacturing compared to conventional panels. And also our panels are made to be easy to recycle. Our installation process is fast and simple, and we don't need additional floating platforms. And in the end, our panels produce both electricity and heat. Many existing industries have a power plant that also produces this combination of electricity and heat. So we can match their existing power supply and power mix. This can be, for example, paper industry or district heating. We have a pilot plant located in Kongeparken. We plan to sell production licenses, panels, or the energy from the panels that are located at the customer's location. The last option will make it more less risky for the customers to take the chance on a new and unproven technology. Recently, we were invited by SINTEF to participate in an EU project application about capturing CO2 with the help of solar energy. So I hope some of you want to join us in fighting climate change while conserving as much of our nature as possible. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that pitch. Our next person up is Henrik Mollat with his presentation on renewable energy for water, microbusiness and sustainable developments. Henrik has experience in connecting responsible business conduct and sustainable development for almost 20 years. He is now the CEO and one of the founders of the startup company Circular Waters.
Thank you, Milene. Just to give you a brief background on not solar, but on the other stuff I work with. Today, 2 billion people lack access to clean and healthy water. And 80% of all water used today is sent back to nature, untreated. And pre-COVID-19, 2 billion people lacked access to nutritious, safe, nutritious, or actually enough food. And these critical issues is what we address. So therefore, Circular Water has developed an off-grid water treatment system called SWAM, Solar Water Agri Module. SWAM produces potable water and a byproduct that can be used as yield enhancement in agriculture. This is possible with the use of chitosan in the water treatment process and with solar energy to operate outside expensive and unstable power grids, hence targeting the water, energy, food nexus. The founders of Circular Water all have in common that we view the UN Sustainable Development Goals as the largest ever mapping of global needs, leaving a gigantic market analysis and a blueprint for sustainable development and for business opportunities. So in our team, we have put together leading companies and people with ability and common interest to address the major challenges and opportunities mapped out in the SDGs. Our solution, the technologies we have put together are well proven and robust and leaves multiple output and impact. And after almost 2 years of market research, it seems that we're alone in the market, targeting the water, energy, and food nexus in a one solution containerized system. Our first target market is the gigantic development market. This involves the NGOs, feet on the ground, and their fantastic ability to operate in challenging areas. In our business model for this market, the NGO, Circular Water's direct customer, may achieve the development program goals for a reduced cost and risk, depending on the local operator's success. For the local operator, SWAM is a small-scale business unit that gives the opportunity to produce, harvest, and sell the 3 products from SWAM: water, energy, and food. And this gives an economic incentive for the local operator, in addition to the ability to meet the commitments for getting access to SWAM. And our investors get an return on their impact investment. over the past year, Circular Water has been, together with Norwegian Church, I developed a pilot project to test SWAM for later scaling up in their Climate Smart Economic Empowerment Program. So next up is financing the pilot, going to Somalia or Sudan with Norwegian Church Aid. So if you're interested in a good talk about the combination of solar-powered business and sustainable development, I hope to hear from you. Thank you.
Much again. And our fifth pitcher is Trygve Mongstad, the CEO of Over Easy Solar. He has been working with solar since solar panels were produced at €1 a watt more than 10 years ago. He has started many initiatives within the Solar Norway, like the Norwegian Solar Energy Cluster, which is co-hosting this event. Welcome, Over Easy Solar.
Thank you very much, Mille. So my name is Trygve Mongstad, and I'm the CEO and founder of Over Easy Solar. We are here to make solar simple. Solar modules have looked basically the same for the last 30 years. A lot has happened with the technology below the glass and inside of the silicon solar cells, but the shape of the module has remained more or less the same. I have gotten to know this field well after working for more than 10 years as a researcher, an installer, and a consultant for solar installations on buildings. The installation of solar modules on flat roofs is time-consuming, and it is a surprising amount of manual work that goes into the installation. Over Easy Solar is developing a completely new solar module that is about 10 times faster to install. So what's the trick? It's completely modularized. It consists of both the solar panel and the mounting system in the same piece. It's highly differentiated on the market with many benefits also for the owners of the installations. It's easier to do maintenance on the building, the energy is more generated when it is actually needed, and it looks completely different, so most people actually find it more aesthetical. In addition, we have some strong benefits in niche markets, especially connected to green roofs. The most interesting thing about solar panels on green roofs is that there is no good solution on the market today, but it's easy to recognize how our system solves the problem. The module that we are developing is patent pending, and it has been, and we have tested all the principles and benefits of the system in a prototype we installed this summer. The prototype is of 1.4 kilowatt. It's fairly small, but it was mounted in less than 5 minutes. Using conventional technology, mounting 1.4 kilowatt would have taken about 1.5 to 3 hours to mount, and we did this in less than 5 minutes. The market for solar installations is huge. Only on flat roofs, about 500 billion euro will be spent on solar installations during the next 10 years. We in Over Easy are gaining traction. We have commitments from our first customers, and we have seen very strong interest for our product in niche markets. Our first paid pilot plant is to be installed in November as a test for Oslo municipality. We are looking for investments, pilot customers, and people to work with us. So I hope some of you will join us and make solar simple together with me.
Thanks, Trygve, that was great. And we're getting ready for our last pitcher of this event. Vaterra creates IoT software solutions for energy systems, and Espen Sandø is co-founder and CEO of Vaterra. He has a technical background and experience from previous startups, and currently he is focused on developing digital solutions for the energy system.
Thank you. Thank you. How do I go back? That's fine. Either way, we're dealing with two problems. First is the increasing demand for electricity. As more sectors are being electrified, transport, oil and gas, construction, the demand for electricity will only continue to increase. This is a chart from the International Energy Agency, and you can see that by 2030, the demand for electricity will be twice of what it was in 2005. Second, this demand for electricity is putting a strain on the grid, leading to bottlenecks. Our solution is to create a platform that connects houses with solar panels and batteries and coordinates them. Each house gets a revenue for being part of the network. So how does this solve the problems mentioned? So first, by creating a source of revenue for each of the households, encouraging more people to get solar panels and batteries, thus helping meet the demand for electricity. Second, when combined, the houses can deliver enough power to help ease the peaks in the grid. And when coordinating them, we can do that. So how does this look like in practice? This is a project we're currently working on in a refugee camp in Jordan, where we're helping our partners fix their energy situation. Refugee camps, all the incentives are in the wrong places. They don't pay for the electricity, and it's first come, first serve. Just use as much as you can until it's empty, basically. The goal of this project is to ensure everyone has enough electricity, and our role in this project is to deliver the software that does the energy monitoring and controls the power. We hope the next step is to take this to more refugee camps with our partners, but we're also looking at other markets, such as microgrids and gated communities in sub-Saharan Africa, as well as a home market here in Norway. So this is the Vaterra team. We have a diverse team with a mix of backgrounds, technical backgrounds, business development backgrounds, programming, electrical engineering, PhD in business development. But we also have a strong network in Africa. Actually, one of the co-founders is living in Abidjan in Ivory Coast. Most of the people on the team have experience from previous startups. So we're looking for partners that can help us realize our goals. In particular, power companies, electrical hardware companies, or real estate developers. We're also now looking for funding opportunities. We've run the company so far on grants and commercial revenue, but we're now looking to speed things up. Thank you.
I think all of you pitchers spent, I can take it if you want to, spent your 3 minutes really well. So great job for everyone participating here today. So this means that we are entering our Q&A part of this event. So both you guys sitting here in Oslo and also everyone online that can use the chat are welcome to ask their questions. I want to start off with a question, if that's fine for everyone. You have to protest if not. I think how we will do this is probably you can raise your hand and I will hand the microphone. Does that sound good for the technical people here? To the person that wants to either answer or ask another question. I also have help from Katja in the back here to make sure that you get your voice heard. So I have a question combining some of you, because Trine, you mentioned some of DNB's experiences with solar this far, and I'm sure you guys paid close attention to those issues that she wants to have solved. So do you have any of you can grab the word if you want. How are you working on these issues that she's mentioning? How are your solutions kind of applying to those issues we see within solar today? So if one of you have to go first. So does anyone want to start? How your solution solves problems?
We were the only company, Jørgen from Repack here, by the way, only company working with batteries, in this group at least, and I think that will be a key enabler to actually scaling up solar to and renewable sources to cover our full energy system. So that's our take, and using reused batteries, you both limit environmental footprint and cost, so many good things at once.
And also that you're using reused batteries, Jørgen, and so are those systems safe? Are there any security challenges with using batteries once again?
Yeah, and thank you for the question, and that is definitely yes. So we are using qualified batteries from qualified sources, so we know where the batteries come from and their previous life. and also using high quality automotive components around it. So if you feel safe by driving an electric car and charging an electric car in your basement, you should feel safe buying a battery from Repack.
Great. So, yeah. No? Okay. And Åge Eivind, I have a question for you, so if you want to grab the other one. You mentioned that you're reducing solar cell materials quite a lot. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, the way we do that is by using simple mirrors to focus the light on smaller solar cells. The mirrors are made from plastic and simple to mass produce. So it's a simple solution, really.
That sounds good. So, Kato, you might have to run a bit back and forth here, but Jaran, you're very optimistic about solar, and I'm very happy to hear it. But I have a question regarding, so one thing is the demand. We know the demand is there, but what's your take on the access to actual production, the raw materials? Do we have enough to meet the demand for solar?
Yes, the short answer I think will be that it will be some disruptions in the supply chain, but they will be solved over time. It's both for the solar panels, silver could be one issue. I think with the prognosis we have for this 1.7 degree scenario, it's more silver consumed by solar panels in 2030 than all the silver consumed today in the world. So we have to find more silver, and silver is difficult, or is very good compared to other kind of conductors for that purpose. But learning from commodity value chains is that you get price fly-ups, and then new sources of supply will emerge over time. You also have a lot of new sources of supply, like seafloor minerals. You have these massive sulfides. You know, we have that even in the Norwegian economic zone from Jan Mayen to Svalbard. So that is a huge prospect. In batteries also, there are quite some issues with cobalt, for example. You need cobalt to stabilize the cathode to avoid collapse of the cathode. 70% of the cobalt is today coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is an issue also. But you also have alternative technologies, iron phosphate batteries, for example. So with the combination of, what should I say, regular responsiveness in commodity value chains and alternative technologies, I think that none of these lack of minerals will be, or metals will be showstoppers, but it will create some delays in the value chains. Okay.
That's great. I know we have a few questions from the chat, so maybe we should continue with those. Benedicte has them ready for us, maybe to prepare everyone.
They are coming in, and maybe I can just take it at once and you can control. There is a question for DNB from Peter Boone. You focus on several regions, but not sub-Saharan Africa. Why? And maybe afterwards a question for the startups. Are you working together? Batteries plus solar, for example, are a great combination, from TJ Preston. I have two more, but maybe those two.
Start with those. So Trine, would you like to answer the first questions? Katja is getting her running shoes on, making sure everyone can get the microphone in time.
Yes, I think the regions we have picked are based on us having presence there. You really need to understand the local markets when you do business in the energy to understand the PPAs and the political risks. So far, Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, has been challenging in terms of both political risk, but also the kind of investors that have done their business in the regions where we operate are not as active. So mainly it's about the risk side of it, actually.
I understand. Any of the startups want to answer the second question we got from the chat?
Yeah, actually, I was discussing with Jørgen here just before we started. Jørgen from Repack. I'm Trygve from OverEasy. We were discussing about batteries and solar and deploying pilot projects together because it's an obvious combination, and and for like the battery customers are often introduced to batteries through interest in solar installations. So I think we are sharing an office at Startup Lab together, and I think we'll have a lot of communication in the years to come.
Are there any other ones from the startup gang that wants to contribute?
Thank you. I'm Henrik from Circular Water. Yes, producing water we need energy, and we can extend the time we produce energy, produce water using battery, of course. So we're installing battery in the machine setup together with the solar panels. So obviously, battery is an important issue.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Harold from Glyn Solar. Yes, and I just want to mention that I think because of the solar energy cluster, we are meeting each other more often. So that helps that we know each other and know what's going on and give each other advices to startup companies. So that's very good.
This are definitely key for things to really accelerate and things to happen. So this is great, and again, pitching ONS when we enter 2022. Yes, should we move on to another question from the chat, perhaps? Remember that everyone here in the room also, if you would like the word, just put your hand up and I'll notice you.
So 2 last questions I think there is time for. From Smagul Karashanov. Are there companies, startups focusing on sunlight-assisted CO2 to fuel conversion? Too technical for me, but maybe some of you have the answer. And he also has a question for DNB. Would pre-Aral region be interesting for you? That is the formal Aral Sea that has been dried out in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. And there is a question, the last one, from Stanislav Smerle to Overeasy Solar in particular. Any slightly more detailed information that can be shared about the technical concept?
Great. So I think we have a lot to start with. Just grab the mic, any of you that wants to continue with your questions. Perhaps we should start with DNB.
I'm not too familiar with the request that you had, but I think we are looking into projects in various regions, but the maturity of the projects, of course, and the political situation is really important for a commercial bank to be able to be part of the financing.
Question again was quite technical, but do any of you startup guys have any comments to that? Solar to fuel conversion? Maybe it's not within your scope, but it's definitely an interesting concept that I'm going to Google when I get home. So yeah, so for the other question, was it Overeasy? Was I correct? Yeah, just to answer that.
Yeah, sure. To answer to that, a change in technology. I thought about the things that happen inside of the solar cells. Is that solar cells are becoming bifacial now. Like in 10 years, all solar cells basically will be able to generate light from both sides. So I've been churning on this in the back of my mind for some time and trying to find a solution on how to utilize this to make a product for building integration. So that kind of gives you a clue about what the technology entails. We're re-engineering the solar module. It looks completely different and is based on bifacial solar cells.
Yes, cool. Thanks. I think we are closing in if there's not any more questions. Yeah, we have a hand here in the back.
Hi, this is a question for you, Jarand. You mentioned in your talk that the 1.4 and 1.5 scenarios are quite ambitious, but you mentioned that if agriculture and I believe meat, perhaps cattle, would be revolutionized, that perhaps those become a little bit more achievable. Could you expand on what kind of revolutions are you talking about?
Yes. Yes, you're right. Today, 24% of the emissions are from agriculture and land use. And in 2060s, it will be maybe 100%. So, of course, addressing the agricultural sector is important. One example is artificial meat. It's maybe not a very delicate topic, but I can say it's still, when you scratch yourself or someone else, you get this reproduction of the skin. This process, this biological process, is what you're actually producing in this artificial meat factories. So you're actually starting with some living things, and you're just building on that, and to produce artificial meat, and that could scale really, and that is not emitting the methane. So we can actually create artificial meat rather than natural meat without methane emissions, which is a very significant and will be a very significant part. Another thing is rice fields. You know, so rice fields is probably it's between 1 and 10% of global emissions. It's very large uncertainties, and that is because you have microbes in the water, since it's flooded rice fields, that is producing all this methane due to the flooding and this shallow flooding. So if you have dry seeding, if you have micro procession, you know, with cameras, etc., really saying what is the minimum level of water we can have to still make the rice grow, you can actually reduce up to 90% of those emissions. A third factor is, for example, in-house very tall agricultural buildings for the crop production and salads and everything, you know. And you can do that in a very controlled environment with the cold cathode light, with LED light. Exactly what the plant is need. You don't need any kind of what do you call it, toxic, you know, to avoid the bugs, etc., because it will be a closed and controlled environment. It will also have much less fertilizers because of this controlled environment, and also a lot of the nitrous oxide is from the fertilizers and manure pollution. So all of this is actually possible to address all of these sectors within agriculture to reduce kind of with a future much more, what should I say, scientific manufacturing-like kind of agriculture. So for some reasons we might not like it because it's not really the natural ecological type of agriculture, but it will drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this, if you see that revolution happen within the next 3 to 4 decades, what is then described from me today as the 1.6 degree scenario could be a 1.5 or 1.4.
It's a very mixed picture. We need a lot of solutions in very many areas. I know we have another question from the chat. I feel like the vibe is so good in the room that I need to have another one.
There are actually two, if you have the time. Maybe the first one is a follow-up to Rystad. You show that 32% of world energy will be provided to user by storage. It won't be all batteries. Are you tracking the energy storage capacity, and what kinds of storage are likely to scale? Should I take the other question at the same time? It is for, I would say, Equinor maybe, from Vijay. We are already solar energy manufacturers and would like to grow in other markets. How will the funding work?
Okay, Jarand can start off with this question.
Yes, so you're right, 32 or at least 1/3 need to come from storage of the future electricity. For solar panels, the ideal combination is batteries, because basically it's 365 days a year, and the solar is off and on every day. And if the battery lasts for 25 years, you could have up to 10,000 cycles. And with the cost of $100 per kilowatt hour, with 10,000 cycles, that is actually only $10 per megawatt hour, meaning only adding like 25% of the cost to the solar to get the electron delivered when you need it. For backing up wind farms is more difficult, because wind cycles is typically 4 days. Every year it's about 90 cycles of high pressure, low pressure systems. And then you get much lower capital productivity, only 1/4. You know, so then it's $50 or $60 per megawatt hour to actually back up wind capacity, because you need much bigger batteries, and they need to be charged for many days. So then it's less ideal, but you can look at some new chemistries like flow batteries and others. So you need more energy and less power. For solar you need not so much energy, but you need very high power. So also there it's some new solutions like gravity, etc. You know, you have these concrete blocks that are actually just taking up when you have enough energy, and you're just letting them down when you need energy, you know, with a generator. But that is high energy, low power. It's also, of course, water pumping, but that is only relevant where you already have reservoirs, because you don't want to use hundreds of square kilometers of water pumping, you know, so it's not really a big scalable capacity opportunity, but where you already have the reservoirs, you can use that also. And also some other technologies like compressed air, and in salt caverns, etc. In special places you can use that, and also heat storage. Some places it's well suited for that. But I think batteries is really what will scale, and that's why we will see this revolution in batteries, and also I think why it's very relevant to reuse all the batteries from the transportation sector when the performance is getting down, and then they can have maybe another 20 years of life as a stationary storage, where the weight component is not that important.
Yeah, definitely. So for Kjersti, you can just grab the mic next. We had a question for, if you are a solar energy company and you're trying to move on with it, how does funding work? Like what are the steps to make it happen?
Yes, the first step is to decide on what kind of funding do you want. You want loan financing, or do you want new investors on board? Or do you want both? And from an equity investor perspective, as we are, you would then have to value the company, what is it worth, and then to go out and find the new investors. And then there's negotiations between the company and the investors on terms. And then you have to, of course, value pros and cons for the various type of investors, and then. Yeah, it's to get an agreement. And do you want financial investors? Do you want strategic investors like we are in Equinor? We don't just come with money, but we come also with competence and commitment over time. And yeah, it's to find the best match for what you want to do and where you want to go. And if you want to address specific geographical market, I would recommend you to find an equity investor who knows the market where you want to go.
Yeah, it's definitely never a bad idea to ask for help. And also, I think it's a great idea to join those events where you can actually meet people, network, build your network, try to grasp what kind of people am I looking for. And that's why we're also doing a scale-up arena at the ONS next fall, where you can actually have those companies meet the money, where they can actually start building those relations. So unless there are any big protests, I think this marks the end of today's event. Thanks to all of the speakers and of course all the pitchers. I have certainly learned a lot today, and also thanks to Startup Norway for helping us host this. They are the ones providing our venue and also helping us with all the technical things that I would never manage alone. And of course also to the Norwegian Solar Energy Cluster, which is co-hosting with us in ONS. So I also want to remind you that this is just a taste of the conversations that we're starting in Stavanger next fall. I think I've mentioned that quite a few times today, so I'm sure you know. We trust to see you there, and I think you should enjoy the last part of Oslo Innovation Week, and thank you so much, both you guys here in Oslo and those online, for joining us today. Yeah. So we actually have a few gifts for those of you that spoke today. I have this in my little bag over here. So even though we're discussing solar, it rains a lot in Stavanger at least, and it's